Boca no llama.
Just a few. This is our fourth class. Next week will be our final one. You've been great students, by the way. I can get calls from you telling me about certain things in your chart or certain things that you've seen with this technique we've been using. And it quite amazes me how quickly you pick up on it to work. So what we're going to do is I want to expand a little bit on the relationship charts and just a little bit more clarity on it so you really understand how these work. Next week I'm giving you copies of a book that it's out of print. Otherwise I would have bought them and got them for you guys, but it's out of print, so we just have to copy. I was lucky to find it. You know how you go on the internet, you can do just amazing what you can find today, but I found one person with a used copy of it. And it's a simple little book. It's only about 18 pages. But what I want to do is I want you all to have it because I've used it for years. I mean, and there's very few things that or people that have published things that, I mean, becomes so useful to me that I find almost indispensable in the work you're doing. So I want you all to have that. Tonight I'll go over a little bit, some of it with you, because I want you to get a feeling about how it works. The way she's done this is simple. It's just simple one-page things. Mars conjunct. Okay, Sun conjunct. And then she'll go over and she'll do the next. Mercury conjunct, Venus conjunct. And then at the very first page, she says, the trines and sextiles which are favorable can be read under the conjunctions. In other words, even though it says conjunct, it's just a positive meaning for those aspects, any good aspect between planets. However, they are not as influential or potent if they're not a conjunction. Conjunctions are the most powerful in a relationship chart. Planets only within a 5-degree orb should be used, and that's generally true. The only exception to that might be the moon and the sun, which sometimes has a larger orb would be quite weak, finding little expression between the two planets. To get a fuller meaning from the keywords, see in which house the planets are posited in the chart being compared. This will then tell you the department of the life that will experience the favorable, or she puts evil influence, okay? Example, Mars in one's chart opposing Mars in the chart to be compared. Reading, complete lack of understanding, clashes, etc. Because Mars is argumentative, obviously. And you have a lot of conflict with somebody that your Mars is opposed to their Mars. Further, Mars in the second house, which rules finances and assets, you can safely say there will be quarrels and lack of understanding in this matter. So this is how you start understanding to read these compatibility charts. So should the adverse aspect be in the third house, a lack of understanding would be regarded to brothers, sisters, journeys, short trips, things like that. And then, so it starts out, it's a simple book, that's the only instruction. Moon conjunct, Sun conjunct. Hopefully I'll have them all done for you by next week. Not hopefully, I will. It's not that many pages. There's only, actually it's only 25 pages. Put it on the printer and just single page. And my wife was doing them at work trying to get them two-sided, but whatever, we'll get these for you. So how many of you looked at the compatibility charts that I gave you last week for people that are in your lives? Did any of you find them interesting or conflicting?
I laughed a lot.
You laughed a lot.
Oh, did I laugh?
Why did it, what?
This is the person I know from the past, and he's entering my life again. And he's a difficult man, but it says we're so compatible in so many ways. It's hysterical. I'm hysterical.
So,
I do believe, but I don't. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's okay. No,
It's okay.
yeah. It's better to get a reading between you and an astrologer. Somebody can look at the charts together to see it. These compatibility charts are computer driven, obviously. They're not something I sit down. I think I did a compatibility with you previous to this.
Well, I gave somebody's chart to you. That was a bad one. The Scorpio with all the bad.
Yeah, and what did I tell you?
You didn't tell me about compatibility. You just said stay away from, stay away from, stay away from.
And what did you do?
I'm with him in a sense. He's in my play, but now I have a hold on him because he needs to do hours of community service. So I worked it out, so he will do it at the, I want him to stay there with my play. I wrote a whole thing around him.
Yeah, yeah,
And he's good, and he's doing fine. He's not happy because he's never happy.
Yeah.
He'll never be happy.
and how does he treat you?
Well, he knows now where I stand with him, which is in opposition, that we're friends, and that's it.
But keep a distance.
No, I don't,
Yeah.
I can't put up with the negativity. It's
Yeah.
terrible, it's terrible.
Was he Was he abusive in his speech to you?
What's that again?
Was he abusive in his speech toward you?
No, he's not abusive, he's very sad, he's just a negative, everything is horrible, nothing is good.
Yeah.
I can't be around that kind
So it
of
brings you
thing.
down, huh? Yeah. He brings you down.
It brings you down,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
It's depressing, it's
yeah.
very, and it's sad, because
Yeah.
we've got qualities that are nice, but,
But can I ask why he had community service?
excuse me, can
Do you know why he had community service?
Well, I went to court with him, he was, he had a ticket, and he claims that the policeman came out of the bushes and he didn't identify himself. And so he feels he thought he was being threatened by some. Going to attack him. I don't know what went on. He must have said some bad things. The policeman didn't give him one ticket, he gave him 4, and he had to go. So therefore, he wanted to go on trial. He wanted to have a trial by jury because he felt he was abused, and it was not legal. It was not legal.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Why do you think I told you to stay away from him?
well,
Anyway, enough of
he's
this.
convoluted with his story. It's
I know,
very
I know.
fascinating.
I just knew he's bad news. Okay, that's all I
Very,
was
very
saying.
sad.
And, all I had was the charts, but I said stay away from him. You can't stay away from somebody you're working with. In this environment you're in with him, you've got to keep the distance and yet work with him. It's not always easy when you counsel somebody to stay away from somebody. You can't always arrange that, obviously, especially if it's a husband and wife. Stay away from him. That doesn't go over very well, Just stay away from her. So, oh my God. Anyway, we have a lot of fun with this. So what I want to do is I want you to look at these relationship things. I want you to kind of get a feeling for them. You've got questions about these compatibility charts, bring them up to me today and we'll look at them. We can always do that. So there's also something else called, there's compatibility charts, and there's something called relationship charts, which is kind of different. There's 2 kinds of charts you can generate. One is kind of a composite of both charts. What it does is it finds the midpoints of all the planets and it puts them in there and it makes another. I don't buy it. I don't like the system at all. What I'm looking for in a chart is simply to find relationships between planets, and that's what I'm looking for. So anybody's got a chart that they want to ask a question about, let me have an aspect that is shown in a compatibility chart, and I'll talk to you about it if you've got something you're curious about. And whether it's positive or negative, just if you can do that. Anybody have anything? Yes?
When their Mercury opposed my sun,
Mercury opposed the sun, okay. And where's it at? What house?
my sun is 11th or 10th house Virgo. His Mercury is in 6th house Taurus. Or wait, no, hold on.
4th house.
Yeah. Wait, no.
Can't be.
What's this with me? His Mercury is in Pisces. Okay. It's going 3rd house.
3rd house?
Yeah.
What degree? Does it say?
7 degrees Pisces.
Okay, 7 Pisces is Mercury. And where's your sun?
Mine is 1 degree of Virgo.
Okay, those are opposition. 1 degree is Virgo.
No,
Huh?
sorry, scratch that, it's 7.
7?
Yeah.
Your sun's 7 degrees Virgo.
Yeah.
Okay, that's exact opposition in those 2 charts. Exact. Okay, so I want you to think through this with me, because we're learning the best way is to put your thinking cap on and say, what do you think that means? What is the meaning of the sun, first of all? Just right off. Spirit, good. Will, that's the most important word there is. Okay, will. When you think of the sun, the spirit, you can't beat down somebody that's got a strong will. You see what I mean? I've been in conflicts where I wouldn't quit when I was young. Couldn't happen now. But I mean, I wouldn't quit. And the guy finally says, I can't beat you anymore, Ron. I said, it's all right. I'm getting back up. I mean, my will was so strong, even though my particular ability to beat that guy wasn't there, that he respected it enough that he left me alone because I wouldn't quit. And that will's what is the ruler. Edgar Cayce said it best. He said, will is ever the ruler. Will is ever the ruler. Some people have really strong charts, strong wills. You know, my wife's Tarian son, very stubborn, very strong. You know, that will is powerful. Sagittarian's not quite that way. I'm strong in some areas. But, you know, each time you look at a chart, you're looking at the person's will. And their spirit, and how strong is it, okay? Mercury is what, guys? What is Mercury?
Communication.
Good, good.
Short little travels.
Yes, exactly, all those things. It's also, the word thought came from the ancient Egyptian name for Mercury, which was Thoth. Thoth. That was the god of Mercury in the old days. So we got our word thought from there. That's where it came from. So what we're dealing with is a conflict between what? Will and thought. Okay? Now, how does that manifest? How would you think that could come up? Think about that a minute. What do you think conflicts would come out of that?
It's his sun and her Mercury.
It's my son, it's Mercury.
Anybody?
I'm thinking maybe you have your mind set on something, you're not really sure.
I like that. Mind, okay, speech.
I'm thinking also with the sun being in 10th house with his career or where you're going, maybe his thoughts of what I should be are opposite of what I
Your sun in the 10th is your career and your profession.
Right.
Yeah, as opposed to it. The thing is, oftentimes, too, you'll find that you've got to remember something about Mercury. Mercury rules brothers and sisters. That can put you in opposition to his brother or sister. In other words, you know, if you have a family relationship with this person, you can end up with conflicts with that person in their life. Could be their brother or sister. That causes you some aggravation and some challenges to your will and what you feel you want to do in your life. I mean, we're only taking one aspect, just kind of trying to feel through it. But, you know, the dynamics of these energies are amazing. You know, they seem, you say, well, how's that going to manifest, you know? There's many things. It could have, you know, it's interesting, your third house, Mercury, okay? Is that where it's at, third house, right? Is that third? Yeah, so what are we dealing with? Transportation, communication. It could be this person wanting to have or buy a car that your will and what you feel is important is saying, wait a minute, you know, that's expensive. I don't think you need a car like that. We're back to conflict of will. Based on what? His desire, his thinking about what he needs to communicate and drive with. Okay? Small matters, but these things can happen, you know?
Could it also be the relationship is better if he keeps his mouth shut?
Very good, very good. I love it, I love it. I'd be more subtle about the way I tell him that. But I actually, that's perfect. That's very perfect.
Could it
Okay.
be a long distance relationship where the person might be traveling a lot? I mean, it's in the third house.
That's good, very good. Could be, yes. I mean, these are all areas that there could be conflicts, okay? You know, communication, I mean, you think about it. A way a person thinks can really agitate a person's spirit. I can be around some people and I wear me out real quick. The tone of their voice, the height of their, you know, their speech, the way they talk, the incessant talk sometimes, you see, or somebody's got a voice that has got some resonance that just irritates my spirit. I've been around people like that, and you know, it's not you live with it. But I know I could never marry that person. I could never have a long-term relationship with that person because I know that would wear on my spirit over time, and it would be a challenge for me. So again, we also have other things, you know, potentially. I mean, we're only looking at one aspect. There's other things in that chart that's going to mitigate it, maybe aggravate it, or whatever. So do you have any other aspects in that same person's chart that are critical to you, that you think are afflicting, maybe, if we talk affliction? But there's harmonious relationships, too, in that.
Okay. Oh, his Jupiter is conjunct my sun, actually.
Oh, now, that's nice. Ooh, that's really nice. Here's Jupiter's conjunct her sun. Now see what I mean about looking at a whole chart, you see? Here we just about, you know, threw him out in the garbage here, and now we're going to praise now we're going to praise him, right? Jupiter's conjunct the sun. Wow, how much better can that be? Jupiter is called the greater benefic. Okay, Jupiter is higher wisdom, higher understanding. This person you would understand and relate to spiritually as a person that might be somewhat of a guru or a teacher.
That's exactly it. Like, he is extremely spiritual and just basically philosophical. I learn a lot from him.
Yeah.
Talking every day.
Because he would be that to you. He's the guru. Jupiter is Jesus. It's a guru. It's a teacher. You know, and whenever you see it right on top of your sun, that means he's bringing knowledge, wisdom, and higher understanding to your life. Okay, so this is very powerful. So I'll tell you where this would get. This Mercury is trivia. People that have strong Mercuries very often are good at trivia. I'm not. I can't do trivia. I mean, I watch these game shows where people know all this stuff. And I say, how do they store all that stuff? Where does it go? You see, I just couldn't do that. I wouldn't want to even take the time to learn these things that they put in there. But their minds are quick to pick it up, and it's just something they have. They assimilate that real well. But this person's very good for you, just on that alone. He's a benefactor to you, and he's a spiritual guide, and he's a teacher to you. So what does he do? Can I ask?
Well, actually, he's at my job. That's how I know. He's a coworker of mine. But he mentors youth, like in his neighborhood. And what else does he do? He's an ex-Marine. He used to work a lot in behavioral health.
So he's a counselor, actually. And that's what Jupiter is. Jupiter is the counselor. Think about this. What are all the things Jesus is? Think about it. Jesus was called a counselor. He was a teacher. He was a healer. And he's working in those arenas, trying to heal others that are going through traumas and hard times. That's perfect. That's who he is. And so he's bringing his light and his wisdom and his knowledge, because Jupiter is light. Remember that. Jupiter is light. Saturn is what? Darkness. If you had Saturn right on top of your sun, what do you expect from that?
Yeah.
So maybe some hard lessons. Doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just because you don't know the whole chart. You don't know what relationships are going on other than that. But the point being, if you have Saturn sitting right on there, that's a hard teacher. That's somebody who's going to teach you by hard lessons. And discipline. He could bring discipline into your life. And usually the law. Saturn is the rules. Saturn is the law. What did Jesus come to free us from the curse of what? The law. So when you see these energies, this is a person that's a very high-spirited person in your life. Probably more in your life, he'll touch your life more than he might others because of this particular relationship. Now you see how we've only done two aspects in that relationship chart and how accurate it can be. But when we start doing the whole chart, that's what the astrologer does. You know, you have to look at the wholeness of that chart. And you see so when you go through a computer readout like you've got here, it's kind of pulling it all apart. And it's your job as a good astrologer to take and put it back together and bring it into a cohesive whole. Kind of synthesize it all and come up with a meaning. Okay? Anybody else have anything they want to share and discuss with aspects? Yes, Michelle.
Jupiter opposite Mercury and Venus.
Okay, Jupiter in his chart.
Yep.
And where's it at? It's in, is Jupiter's where? What house and what sign?
In the
Huh?
seventh house.
His Jupiter's in the 7th?
Yeah.
What degree?
And 22 degrees
Of what sign?
of Taurus.
of Taurus, okay. And it's opposing your what?
Opposing my, Mercury and Venus
Okay, Mercury
and Neptune.
and Venus and Neptune, all over here, right?
Yeah.
Roughly around 20 degrees in these.
Wait a minute, you know what, I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly, it's a little dark, so it's.
Is it in Scorpio? Are these planets of yours in Scorpio? I think they are.
They are in Scorpio, they're all at 11 degrees, but now I'm not sure whether it's 14 degrees or 22 degrees.
What, your,
Is, no, you know what?
Your-
It's 14.
what is?
Is Jupiter, 14 degrees.
Okay, so we got 14 here.
Yeah.
Okay, and what degrees are your planets over here? Huh?
11,
Oh, 11 and what?
Scorpio.
All of them are 11? They're not, huh?
No, they're all like 10 or 11.
Okay, so they're right roughly there. 11 degrees of Scorpio, okay? All right. Wow. So, and this is what? Is this Venus?
Yeah, Venus.
Mercury, Venus, and Neptune.
Yeah.
Okay, Neptune, I want you to think always about three things you know about everything when you look at something. What is Neptune also related to? Help me. What? Pisces. Good. What else? 12, who said 12th house? Did you say that?
Yeah.
You got them both. So we're always going to be thinking about all the meanings of that, not just Neptune. What is 12th house keyword? Pisces keyword? I believe. Good, 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 good. Okay, so so we're dealing with Neptune, which is your beliefs, Mercury, your thoughts, right here, Mercury, your thoughts, and Venus, your sense of harmony and love, right? His Jupiter, which is his higher thoughts and higher ideals, is opposed to all those things somehow. Now, let's follow that, okay? Jupiter is a beneficent energy. It doesn't mean bad, but what it does mean is this is his view of the world on a light basis, and what his optimism, his faith, and all those things, right? These are your beliefs, your thoughts, and your sense of unity and love, okay? In some respects, this is what he calls his wisdom, is opposed to what you think. In other words, he may be like, how can I say this? And it's not necessarily malevolent, it's not necessarily that. It's just that he's going to try to influence these areas of your life by his philosophies and his beliefs. And that doesn't necessarily, again, mean negative. It means that there's going to be an effort, which could be, if you resisted this, you see, you resist this side, this is going to produce conflicts. Mm-hmm. Am I making any sense to you? Mm-hmm. Okay. He may think you're too idealistic. Neptune's very idealistic. You see that? It's the planet of idealism. Venus is love. Jupiter is too, good, yeah. But there's still something here that, because it's in Taurus, Taurus is very practical, you see.
Two big signs.
Yeah, exactly. And so his spiritual side, if you would, is very practical.
Down to earth.
Very earthy, yes.
Yeah.
Where yours is watery, emotional, and both fixed in a way. So there could be a clash of ideals and thinking that will cause some perturbance in that relationship. It doesn't have to be bad.
I have to point out that it's interesting too because my three planets are in the second house, which is ruled by Taurus.
Mm.
Isn't that interesting?
So it's not in the first house.
Actually,
It's down here.
Second house, yeah.
And this is up near the cusp of the eighth end, right? So it would be if it's in the second. Could be in the eighth. So this also means that it brings more of what into play in the terms of thinking and philosophies that he has and ideals that he has. It involves a lot more around money and resourcefulness, and maybe what you are trying to achieve in your life may be at odds with his own philosophies and ideas. Okay? So, I don't know. Okay? So, have you been in this person's life very long in a relationship?
Not that long.
Okay.
In the scheme of things.
Okay. Does he have any? Has he expressed any? How would I say this? Because here's the thing with oppositions. Even though it opposes, it's trying to be helpful.
And Jupiter is the planet that resurrects
Exactly.
from
Yeah.
conflict. Right?
Exactly. So the whole point of this, that even though there's potential differences here, the purpose of Jupiter is not to hurt;
Right.
it's to help. Okay. So you may find, even though there's a difference of opinion about things, his actual motives and his ideals are in in your favor. They're not really hurting you, but they're trying to force you to make some changes with wisdom, not with coercion. Does that make sense? If you had Mars there, it'd be different. It'd be forceful. You had Saturn there, it'd be harder lessons. Jupiter's not necessarily bad. When it's on a cross. I mean, I was born with it on a cross in my birth chart. I was born with my moon Jupiter, Neptune, and Venus all on a grand cross in my chart. Those are pretty much benefic planets. So even though I went through a lot of hardships in my life, I spent 9 years in prison, it's all been beneficial for me, actually. I always come out as it's a blessing. In disguise sometimes, unfortunately, a big disguise, but it's there. Because if I hadn't have done that, I would have never, came out with what I had. And Jupiter in my chart is in Pisces. In Pisces, so that's wisdom coming out of what? Pisces. What does Pisces rule? Prisons, hospitals, institutions, all that stuff. Okay, making sense? So not only in your chart. Remember I told you, if you put two charts together, you end up with a merging of those energies. So remember I told you last week, I said to you, one person wasn't here, but I told you last week, I said, if you, like in my case, I've got this kind of a cross, I'm born with that cross right here, with Jupiter, okay? Neptune, and interesting, my cross forced me to change my beliefs, Neptune, my philosophy, Jupiter, my emotional and my relationships. It's forcing me to come to terms with all those things. My immaturity in my relationships here, Venus, Moon. Okay? It's hard to say that about yourself, isn't it? But I know that I was that way, and I still am sometimes. But I've got a wife that understands me. She says, you're acting like you're back to your childhood again, your bad childhood. So she forgives that and she oversees it. But for me to stand here and say, I've evolved to the point that none of this is negative. I'm a perfect soul. I'm not. Sometimes I'm a little child that needs the mother who left him when he was a little boy. And so she fulfills that part of my role. The mother, the moon is right there. Because I was separated from the affection. Look at this. I was separated at a young age, very young, from the affection, Venus, of my mother, Moon. Put in institutions, even as a child, put into Catholic homes to be reared by very severe people who would beat me and punish me unbelievably for my emotional problems, like wetting the bed, which I did till I was 13 years old. I had such emotional problems. I stuttered till I was 13 or 14 years old. I'd been abused so bad that these things, it just all revolved around the mother, though. Okay, you get what I'm saying? But Jupiter tends to evolve above things. Jupiter tends to resurrect, and so thank God I had that. If I had Saturn on this cross, I doubt if I'd be here, quite frankly, today. I don't think I'd have survived it. Because first of all, Saturn on the cross tends to do what? Anybody help me with that?
Hard lessons.
It's hard lessons. Speak louder. Who else said something? Don't be bashful.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, hard lessons. But listen, Saturn lives in the past. Saturn's unforgiving. Saturn is, who's the fault with Ron? And I'm never going to forgive him. I'm not going to forgive my mother. I'm not going to forgive my childhood. I'm not going to forget all the hard knocks I had. That's Saturn. It holds on to the past. Remember what Christ said to Peter, who was Satan personified? Get behind me, Satan. You know? I am not Peter. 3 times he said, I'm not. Aren't you one of the disciples? No, I'm not. I'm not. He denied 3 times. Peter denies. Saturn denies. Okay, if you read my book, you'll understand that principle. Saturn curses. It's the accusing spirit. Remember the story of Job. I've told this many times, I think. Job went into the council of the angels. You say, how could he go into the council of the angels with the Lord? How could he go there? He was an angel. A fallen angel, but he's an angel. And he comes into the council of the angels and he speaks to the Lord. He speaks to God. And God says, did you see my righteous man Job down there? He said, yeah, he's righteous, but you let me work on him for a while and he'll curse you to your face. That's what Saturn wants you to do. Or Satan, if you want, okay? To curse. That's the test that we all have. And what does cursing mean? It also means accusing. Accursing, accusing, swearing. Like the old religious churches, and the old preachers say, don't swear, don't cuss, don't what? They don't say that anymore in church, You can say anything you want anymore today. Everybody does, TV. Cursing is part of the vocabulary of people today. But in the old days, it was considered to be something bad. The point being, the Lord said, Satan said he's righteous, but let me work with him for a while. He'll curse you to your face. So he's allowed to do that. The Lord gave him permission to come down and do what he did. He lost his family, he lost his crops, he lost his wealth. Overnight, Sabians came in, destroyed everything, raped and killed, and everything could happen to a man happened. And Job never cursed God in all this that happened. And he turned around and comes back before God, and the Lord says to him, God says, you see my righteous man Job? He didn't curse. He said, yeah, but skin, bone, and flesh is another thing. Let me go back and work on him. Now, interesting what he says. Skin, bone, and flesh. Guess what Saturn rules in your chart? Your skin, your bone, and flesh. It rules that. Your skin is an organ, and it rules it. Saturn. People have eczemas, problems like that. That's Saturn in their chart. See? Okay, so he goes down and he puts a plague on him like terrible. His body breaks out in all sorts of boils and everything. And his wife can't even handle it anymore. She says, you can't be a righteous man. I'm leaving. I can't handle you anymore. So she leaves. After all this, of course, he's restored back to everything. Because Job never cursed. He cursed the day he was born. He never cursed God. You say, what's cursing? Huh? How many times have I shared with you my own experiences, Going before the parole board. Praising him, giving thanks. Because the God's in each of you. It's God was in those 3, 4, or 5, how many men were on that board of the parole board? So they said, Ron, we'll see you in 2 years. Instead of cursing and walking back with anger, I said, thank you. When that knocked them off their chairs, I turned to go. They said, get back here, Watson. Are you being facetious? I said, no, sir, I'm not being facetious. I said, thank you. They said, why'd you say thank you? And I said, well, sir, I believe the combined wisdom of this board is greater than my age and my years. And it must have been correct or you wouldn't have made it. And I turned to go. They said, get back here, Watson. We've changed our mind. And I look back, and they're all nodding to each other. They've all changed their mind. I don't think it's ever happened in the annals of the history of the parole board that they changed their mind. They don't change their mind, but they did. He said, we decided we'll send you to New York. You have 2 armed robberies from 9 years ago. They want to take you to trial there, so we'll let you go there. So, of course, that was like supposedly out of the pot into the fire, but it wasn't. I got out of prison, and I never went back. The judge was compassionate. He released me, and I was free. The only point is it was praise and thanksgiving. If I can teach you to praise, give thanks, and trust in good, and have faith in good no matter what, your life will be changed. All the astrology put aside, I'd rather you get that message from me than anything I put on this board with astrology and planets. Because you have dominion, authority over your life once you understand this principle. You think I wear you out with it? You know, I tell you too much, I speak too much about it. It's because I want to get into your thick skull that this is the answer. The laws are there, but you know what? You can be victory over the laws. You can gain dominion over the laws. You know, he said he came to free us from the curse of the law. Who's he that came to free us from the curse of the law? Guess who it is? It's love made manifest. His name was Christ. He came to free us from the curse of the law. Because the law is a curse. You've seen it work in the charts. I mean, you know, her mother has a car accident and her boyfriend the next couple of days has one too. And it's in the charts. You know, we can't make it up after the fact. It's there. The only point I'm getting at is we want to free ourselves from that. We don't want to walk out of here as astrologers, not only for your own good, but for your clients that you're going to work with, and put them in a state of constant fear of the law. You need to counsel them out of that. And how can you counsel somebody out of that? You teach them the right response to life. And what is the right response to life? It's praise, give thanks, and trust in good. It's simple, so simple a child can comprehend that. An adult generally can't because it's got to be harder. I need to go to church every Sunday. I better eat fish on Friday if I'm a Catholic. I better not worship on Jehovah's Day or worship on Jehovah's Day if I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and not do it on Sunday but Saturday. All these rules and all this crap, all these laws. You know, they weigh you down. They're not about anything. And how do you get out from above that? You walk in love. And this you should know if you're my disciples or not, in that you what? Have love one for another. Not whether you belong to this church or that church, or you do this discipline or that discipline, or you fast and do this. No. It's not about that. It's about love. But you have to love yourself first. Huh? Am I wearing you out with it? I hope so. I hope this message comes through, because this is the most critical thing I can leave you with. That's my legacy to you, to give you this, to walk in love, trust in good. Don't ever fail in that. Let the fruit of thy lips be the sacrifice of praise, and in all things give thanksgiving and praise. That's what he asked for. For this is his will for you. Listen to the scriptures. Rejoice evermore. Pray without ceasing. It says pray, but it meant praise. And in all things give thanks, for this is the will of God concerning you. That's his will. You can spend your whole life trying to say, what's God's will for me for my life? I just gave it to you. You have no excuse. That's his will. That's all he asks of you. And we're coming up for some hard times on this planet. And those people that have this knowledge are going to be blessed. And those that don't, that are cursing, all the things that are happening, are going to be cursed. And that's the only thing that will separate those two, is your response. Yes, Michelle, I'm sorry I didn't get to you.
I so many questions. You're talking about will again. You started off talking about the sun being the will. And it occurred to me, and this is a little esoteric, I realized that is it possible that the position of the sun in one's chart
be a clue as to a greater will meant for the soul of that person?
Absolutely. For example, in my chart, okay, I have the 12th house. Guess where you think it'd be? Who would spend 9 years in prison? But somebody with a sun in the 12th house. Okay. I have Mars in Pisces. Okay. Mars, what's armed robbery? Mars in Pisces, it put me in prison. Right? Pisces. Back to those three things. Remember? The planet, the sign, the house. We got Mars in Pisces. We got my 12th house sun. And then Neptune's on the cross. Get that one. Neptune's crucified. Again, Neptune, 12th house, Pisces. All the symbols are there. Now, if I'd have been a smart young kid, studied astrology instead of doing all the stupidity I did, I'd say, well, Ron, you better be careful, you know. But I wasn't ready for it. I had to go the path I went. As you said, you know, it's kind of like your destiny. And there are people that have that. But even in that place, okay, it brought me to the truth. It brought me to the wisdom. It brought me to the higher understanding. If it hadn't gone there, I don't think it could have happened.
had you not gone there, you probably wouldn't have been exposed to some.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. It was that, exactly, yeah. So, but again, it's about how could I come out of that 9 years of prison? I could come out angry, hate-filled, like a lot of people do, You go in, Texas State Penitentiary, you're called a sorry old thing all day. That's what they call you. Hey, sorry old thing, They don't call you by your name. They abuse you, they mistreat you. And I had it worse because I was a northerner. They're still fighting the Civil War down there in Texas. I was a northerner. I'm serious. They call me Yankee. They were hard on me because of that, Anyway, enough of that. So, anybody else want to look at something in their charts, aspects, or is this helping you see it better when you do it this way? Because I had a planned program for tonight, I thought, just to make it a flow and let everybody give me what they need to get back from me. If I got it to give, I'll give it. So, what else? Who else has an aspect or something going on between one of the charts I did for you, and you're wondering what it means?